All right, Cap, so we're going to talk about the 1995 derecho that moved through this morning 25 years ago. So you actually lived through it.
I've been through a lot of different weather in my long lifetime. That's a day I'll never forget. Now, I was working that Friday night. It was an early Saturday morning. And, Rob, it was one of those unpredictable things. There were a couple of thunderstorms at midnight just north of Lake Ontario. And you didn't think much of it. But it was a hot, humid day. I think it was upper 90s that day.
99, I think, was actually the record that day.
And at midnight, it was 82 degrees. So you knew there was a chance of a thunderstorm. And then before 6 a.m., it was like the end of the world here when that line came through with the horrific winds. The worst, by far the worst complex of thunderstorms I've ever seen.
So now you've told me the story a couple of times. Give me a little bit about you were out in it.
Well, it was such a great summer night. My brother drove out from Boston, and we decided to go fishing out in Richfield Springs on Canandaigua Lake for bass and walleye. So we got out there. It was dark, like 3 in the morning. And we were in a small putt-putt boat. And, about 5:15, we could see some lightning in the western horizon. And I said, okay, let's stay close to shore. And then it was about 5:30, I look across, and literally only a mile away, the shoreline totally disappeared.
Wow.
And when it disappeared, I said to my brother, we got to get to shore. We got to get to shore. It was dead calm. There was just some rumbles. And within 1 minute, that storm hit us. I believe it was moving 65, 70 miles per hour at one point. And we jumped on land, threw the boat up, jumped on land, literally laid on our bellies, bear hugging on the ground, the base of trees. And I'm going to say 70 to 90 mile per hour winds went right over us. Trees were snapping everywhere. It's amazing. It's the closest that we've both ever come to being killed. Trees were falling everywhere, and we were getting pelted by quarter-size hail, and it was about 3 or 4 minutes. It wasn't like 30 seconds. And so we'll never forget it because we just made it to shore in time, or more than likely we would have been killed by that storm.
So now you say the hail, did that do anything? I think you had mentioned that it dropped the temperature significantly.
Yeah, I mean, it was probably 85 when it hit, and then when it went through, the temperature had to drop into the upper 60s. I mean, we were cold. We were shaking. It just was one of those storms that was just unbelievable. And on the trip back, now it's normally to my house about a 45, 50-minute drive back home. It was about 3 hours because everywhere you looked, literally trees were in power lines crossing the roads. I've never seen such widespread destruction. And you mentioned in part one, Albany had a wind gust of 77.
Yep. And
we believe that's the second strongest wind gust in all of weather history at the Albany International Airport. So it hit everybody. And I mean, you can see it here, Rob. I mean, it was just...
all the way through New England.
Yeah, and it kept getting stronger and kept getting stronger. And these things sometimes feed on themselves. Back then, we didn't have the technology that we have today. We're kind of spoiled today. So we're out fishing. It isn't like I could go to my app
and check your radar, right?
Check the radar. And here's a weatherman who almost got killed by a severe thunderstorm. And that squall line was from like Lake Champlain all the way down to Binghamton. And everybody, in fact, you can kind of see it here, everybody in the path of that had winds of 70, 80, 90, maybe 100.
There was even a couple reports of 100 or more.
And in the damage in the Adirondacks and the number of fatalities and loss of life and injuries was just devastating.
Now, since this, have you seen any type of derecho or any similar storms that have moved
I've never
through
seen anything on this magnitude. We've seen other derechos where you get a complex of thunderstorms that develop in upper Michigan or up near the northern Great Lakes, but not to this magnitude. We've had some pretty good ones. Now, the thing that made this so destructive and so dangerous is the time of day it hit. When they hit right before daybreak on a weekend morning, summertime, people outdoors camping and hiking, that is what makes it even more dangerous. I haven't seen anything comparable to this event 25 years ago. I can remember the details of it like this. And I got home, and of course, I had tree damage at my house too. I think at my house, I clocked 76 miles per hour, the wind gusts. So a rare event, but a deadly event, Rob.
Now, how long would you estimate? How long were you without power? I'm assuming you didn't have power.
Well, we lost power probably for half a day where I was. But
One of the lucky
I
ones.
think there were like 100,000 people or more around here, and some of them were for an entire week. I think what happened was if you were in one of those spots where you had trees everywhere, it just took so long. And don't forget, up in the Adirondacks, the sparsely populated areas, some of those roads up there were impassable for days, right? So just to get in and clean up the trees, to put the power lines up, was a 4, 5, 6 day project.
900 acres of trees were destroyed. So
900,000, right?
900,000 acres.
And
that's
you
what it
were
was.
saying, I believe there were actually people that were camping and hiking in the Adirondacks that physically could not get out.
There was about 30 people that had to be helicoptered out of the Adirondacks because the roads were just completely impassable.
And the other interesting byproduct of this was 4 or 5 years later, there was a concern about wildfires in the Adirondacks. What do you do? Because there were so many millions of trees that were dead because they had snapped and broken. So there was a high fire risk for many, many years because so many trees were busted up, broken, and dead. So there was a ton of fuel in the Adirondacks, and there was a real concern. Do you put it out, or because it's forever wild, do you let it burn, let nature do nature's thing? And fortunately, we didn't get any real big fires, but it could have been horrendous up there.
And I'm sure this is kind of one of those storms that people will never forget if they lived through it. I've seen a lot of people on social media, commenting, saying, they remember exactly what they were doing that day because just how powerful it was.
It was a storm that I'll never forget. I remember every single detail of it. I can remember the house, the camp next to us, where we were laying on the ground, getting hit by lightning and a small fire. There was nobody there. I can remember the boat getting picked up and flipped on shore. And here's kind of a funny part of the story. I had my favorite fishing hat on that I had for like 10 years. You know, you get stuck on these fishing hats. And when we got off the boat, the wind took the hat and it just flew away like a kite. And I never found it.
That was my next question.
It's funny, after the storm hit, and we realized, okay, we're okay, no broken bones or anything like that, just kind of bruised up from the hail. My number one priority was to find the hat. And I never did.
Wow.
So
somebody might have found
it. Somebody up in Canada Lake might have found a baseball cap 25 years ago. If you did, send it my way.
Yeah, wouldn't that be funny?
Yeah.
Anything else you want to?
Rob, thank you for doing this. Great story. It shows you the dangers of thunderstorms, especially the ones here early in the morning. Mm-hmm. The early morning storms, back in those days, we had no morning newscasts on weekends. None of the stations here. It's those early morning storms when people are sleeping, camping, that are by far the most dangerous. The afternoon, they can turn the TV on, see you, see me, see Tim doing updates. But early in the morning sometimes you just don't have that luxury. A little bit better today, obviously, but back then.
I was going to say, now your phones will go off, your phone,
And yeah, you didn't have, you were barely doing emails back in those days. So to have access to radar and warnings, you just did not have it in 1995 like you do today.